I am Gregory Maguire, and I use my full name, Gregory, not Greg, because it was a family name. It was the last name, my mother's last name, in fact. So I'm a writer. I have been writing professionally for 44 years this year, which means my books have been in print for 44 years. And I write for adults and for children. I started my career writing for children, publishing my first book when I was 24. And after 16 years of writing children's chapter books, as we call them in the trade, I made a conversion and a switch, and I wrote my first adult novel, which is still my best known book, the novel called Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. That book, as some of you may know, inspired a big, splashy, noisy Broadway show. And I love it, love the show, love the sort of relative comfort that its success afforded me, because it brought my name to the attention of even more of the reading audience than I had garnered on my own steam. And since then, I have continued to write books for adults and books for children, not exactly alternately, but it more or less works out like that. I do a children's book, then I do an adult novel. And so now, after 44 years, I'm closing in on just about having done 40 books in 44 years, which is pretty cool.
It's an amazing average when we all be so productive.
I have the most recent one in manuscript right here, The Witch of Maricourt, and it is it's an adult novel, and I haven't even sent it to my agent yet. I was working on it this evening, and I'll probably send it to my agent later in the week. So I'm still working, still happy about it all. But I am, white of beard and thin of pate. And so I do wonder how many more stories I have in myself and how many more of them will be worth dredging out and delivering to a reading audience, adults or children. And about that, I can't make any further comment because I don't know. None of us know what our work lives really are going to entail from beginning to end. I just know that at the moment, I'm continuing to work and continuing to like it.
40 books over 44 years. If I were a betting man, I'd say there's probably another book probably down the line. I mean, is this a recent thought that how many more stories do I have? Or is this something you've been plagued with all along?
No, well, I haven't been plagued with it. Indeed, for many years, I used to say that for me, story ideas came like airplanes looking for a landing strip. I would be busy, to confuse metaphors, I'd be busy out there typing on the runway, trying to, signal in another book so that the ideas that were circulating around and, waiting for clearance to land could have a chance to land. And some of them had a lot of fuel and they kept circling for years until it was their turn and I could bring it in. But as I've gotten older, I do find that there seems to be less and less noise on the horizon and fewer buzzing gnats up there waiting to be netted and dragged down. That doesn't mean that there aren't any. It may mean that I have to start looking for them in other places. It may be that I should maybe try a different medium. Maybe I should try writing for the theater, which I've always been curious about. Maybe I should try writing a film script. Maybe I should just take a year off and let the airplanes find me again and come seek permission for my landing strip. But I have never been short of ideas through my whole life, even in childhood. Right now, I'm feeling I've worked very hard during the pandemic, and I'm kind of ready for a rest. Probably a temporary rest, but a rest nonetheless.
Well, that was something that I wondered, because Wicked, the musical, came out, 2003?
Yes.
And as I was just reading, is the fifth longest, is as of this recording, the fifth longest running show on Broadway, having beat out Les Mis recently, and presumably is going to beat out the other four, and then we'll be the number one. So somewhere in there, somebody has to have come to you at a party or anywhere else and said, "Hey, why not write more musicals? Well, why the children's books? Why not exclusively focus on these big deal musicals?" Has that ever been a temptation for you, or is it your love of children's books so deep that you wanted to come back to this?
Well, that's a really good question, Rob. And the truth is that if I were merely a writer for commercial benefit, commercial gain, I would do nothing but write books for adults and write books that could be converted into other media, films or TV, or Broadway musicals, if I could be assured that would happen. Because the filthy lucre that comes from that kind of experience is just universes in a different galaxy than what one earns even from a very successful children's book. But I don't do that because I really admire the reading audience of children. I really admire the way that they throw themselves into the books that they cherish. I really admire how demanding they are as an audience, that if they don't like something, they'll pitch it and they'll go back to playing computer games or running outside to, see where their dog went or what have you. You really have to work as a writer hard to keep a child audience engaged. And I think that hard work is worth it, because if a child takes your book to his or her heart, that child will own your book for the rest of his or her life. Boy, what a great challenge, what a great accomplishment to do that. Now, I'm going to ask you a question, Rob. I'm going to say, when you were 8 or 10 or 12, I can imagine that some author gave you their work. I mean, because, in the library or in a bookstore, in Scholastic Book Club, or however it is that you got your reading material when you were that age, and you loved it and took it to your heart, and it is part of you to this day. Do you remember that experience? Do you remember which book or books did that for you? Because here you are, after all, talking about literacy, halfway on your life. It has to have happened.
It's a fair assumption. Yes. Ramona Quimby, age 8, by Beverly Cleary, sucked me in second grade. And I never looked back. And then shortly after that, I discovered The Twits by Roald Dahl. And then I've proceeded to read everything that Beverly Cleary wrote and everything that Roald Dahl wrote. And I've just, as we record this, sent off a manuscript to an editor that is my most Roald Dahl-like manuscript. So it's me trying to get back to what I loved most as a child.
Well, then you make a very good case for what I'm trying to say, that writing for children has its own benefits and its own rewards that are they can be you can be commercially successful. I'm not saying I'm not looking down my nose on that, and I've had very good luck with children's books too. But all I'm simply saying is, few people go into the arts because they want to make a lot of money. If they happen to make money, that's a side benefit. Most people go into the arts because they can't stand to do anything else. They can't stand not to. They have to make things or crumple up and die. Some of us just have to make things. That's how we're constructed. I have to make stories, and if I'm not making stories, then I have to make pictures or songs, or sometimes I have to cook or make the bed or make lists of what I want to do next year. I have to make things all the time. It's what gives me pleasure. And I love making stories, but I love making stories for children because they care about them so much.